Internet trolls are trying to disrupt Taiwan's democratic elections. Accusations of illegal properties loom over all three of Taiwan's presidential candidates. Teachers tackle vaping in Taiwan as e-cigarette use continues to rise amongst young people. Plus, fishing for Wi-Fi, Taiwanese boats get connected at sea. A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Inka Vat. Disinformation around Taiwan's elections has become more sophisticated. The founder of research group Taiwan AI Labs told TaiwanPlus. AI Labs recently found that online troll accounts posting about Taiwan's presidential race could be taking cues from China. Beijing's been trying to steer Taiwanese voters away from the ruling Democratic Progressive Party, saying a vote for the DPP is a vote for war. The party's presidential pick, Tsai Ing-wen, is seen by Beijing as a hardline Taiwanese independence supporter. To discuss whether outside attempts to influence Taiwan's elections are having any effect, our reporter Joyce Zhang spoke with Ethan Tu, the founder of Taiwan AI Labs.
Foreign interference is common in Taiwan's elections, but with more digital tools now, what are the major differences you see in this cycle?
The information disputes by these troll accounts are more convincing and more aggressive. The narrative they disputing is that costs related to state-affiliated media of PRC government. We see the scale is more sophisticated than year 2020. And some troll account group, they are focused on attacking opinion leader. For example, if you have some opinion, they will in your comments and attack what you are saying, try to promote you. This year we see much more usage of the short video like TikTok and YouTube channels. Yeah.
On that note of short videos, who would you say are the Taiwanese voters being targeted here?
And I think the young generation, a lot of them use TikTok, YouTube, then they will see a lot of those videos being shown up in their cell phone. So I think they are targeting the young generation. Also, we see some video legislature trying to influence like older people. They are using, for example, Line as a major communication tool. They are targeting two major generations. Yeah.
What is Taiwan doing to ensure that voters are not swayed by disinformation, and is it working?
Cognitive warfare, Taiwan citizens is more used to this environment than other countries, which means we actually have more awareness. For the digital literacy, I would say we still need to educate people. There are a lot of troll accounts is influencing people in Taiwan. Of course, we worry, but we still feel positive. If we can keep educating people, we can train our people to be more resilient against this cognitive warfare. Yeah.
That was Joyce Zhang speaking with Ethan Tu, the founder of Taiwan AI Labs. A popular Taiwanese rock group was pushed to make pro-Beijing statements ahead of their country's elections. That's according to sources vetted by Reuters. The rock band Mayday reportedly refused requests from Chinese state media to voice support for Beijing's claims on Taiwan. These followed a Chinese investigation into the band for lip-syncing at concerts in the country, which is illegal there. Taiwan's Agency on China Relations told TaiwanPlus that if these reports are true, it's another example of Chinese election interference. As election day looms, people here are looking closely at candidates' policies to decide who to vote for. Here at TaiwanPlus, we'll be exploring the real issues. China is not the only issue dominating Taiwan's elections. Housing has also been at the forefront of discussions among candidates and voters. Sally Jensen takes a look at the controversy.
And this is my mom's.
Opening the door for transparency. Less than 3 weeks ahead of elections, the childhood home of Tsai Ing-wen, presidential candidate for the ruling Democratic Progressive Party, or DPP, is making headlines. Taiwan's opposition candidates say Lai's family illegally expanded the property, which sits in an old coal mining area near Taiwan's northern coast. Lai has denied any wrongdoing and offered to turn the place into a miners' museum. But he's not the only candidate whose property assets are under scrutiny. His Kuomintang rival, Hou Youyi, has also been targeted, with the DPP blasting him for profiting off his wife's rental properties, an accusation he also denies.
一世人清清白白，我昨有讲过，好友谊一世人，啊，俺摕一家人吼，是非法来源的一家人。你听好，我听好直接讲，我总统很无算。
The Taiwan People's Party's Ko Wen-je has not escaped unscathed either. He's accused of illegally turning some of his co-owned farmland into a parking lot, which he's promised to tear down. This political barb trading around candidates' properties is resonating widely across Taiwan, since housing is seen as one of the most pressing issues facing the country's young people.
我觉得台湾就是房价太高了，那薪资方面都没有跟上，
薪资一直没有办法买房嘛，对，就这方面的比较年轻人比较没有办法追上这个物价房价。
我觉得人民也越来越没有能力去负担房子，它有点像奢侈品了，它不是生活东西了。
Relations with neighbouring China, which claims Taiwan, usually dominates election discussions. But analysts say that for many young voters, domestic issues now overshadow cross-strait relations.
For these people who are just graduating from college, for example, what they care about is not geopolitics. These housing issues, home ownership, inflation, energy prices increase and all that, these are the needs at home that need to be addressed.
And while shots are fired between politicians over whose property is breaking the rules, voters will be watching to see if there's any relief for their housing woes. Kama Xu and Sally Jensen for TaiwanPlus.
President Tsai Ing-wen has signed the Minimum Wage Act into law to counter Taiwan's rising cost of living. Future minimum wage adjustments will be based on the prices of goods and services. Companies will be fined almost $50,000 if they pay workers less than the legal minimum. The law also establishes a wage review committee and sets out what figures should be used to decide adjustments. It comes as the cost of living in Taiwan continues to rise. Hsinchu Mayor Gao Hong-an has appeared in court for the first time over corruption and plagiarism cases. Gao is on trial for allegedly embezzling public funds while she was a legislator for the Taiwan People's Party. Investigators say she overstated her assistant's working hours, pocketing the $14,000 in extra pay. Earlier this year, 3 of Gao's aides pleaded guilty for submitting false statements at her request. She is also facing trial for allegedly plagiarizing her doctoral thesis. She denies all charges against her. Young people in Taiwan are learning how to say no to smoking. As Laura Stewart reports, it's the government's attempt to tackle a rise in vaping among young people.
Pamphlets, comics and videos. Elementary school students in Taiwan are learning about the dangers of tobacco. It's a course designed by the country's health ministry to teach young people about the health risks of smoking and vaping.
透过影片让我知道吸烟的可怕，也更加了解如何远离烟害。
Despite a change in the law earlier this year to ban e-cigarettes and increase the legal smoking age to 20, a government survey found the number of young people who vape has increased nearly 1.5 times in 3 years. There are now nearly 80,000 high school students using e-cigarettes in Taiwan. It's a rise that has health professionals concerned.
使用电子烟之后，或者使用烟品，其实它影响孩子的大脑生长发育。另外就是气喘的发生的比率会增加大概2.36倍。
But with the social pressure that comes with smoking and vaping, educators here say young students need to learn how to reject the habit.
从认知的拒烟到愿意不使用烟品，爆发到确切的能够实践不使用烟品。
Taiwan's education ministry is asking schools to enforce the complete ban on all tobacco products on campuses. and continue to educate children about the harm they do. Dolphine Chen and Laurel Stewart for TaiwanPlus.
A Taiwanese film has been shortlisted for an Academy Award. The short documentary feature, called Island in Between, explores Kinmen, a small Taiwanese island located a few kilometers off the coast of China. The island used to be viewed as a staging post for the Chinese nationalists' former hopes to take back the mainland. To learn more about the film, our reporter Rhys Ayres sat down with the film's director, Leo Jiang.
So Leo, why Kinmen? You spent a lot of time there over the last year or two making your film. Why is Kinmen so important, and why is it so important to you?
As a Taiwanese person, I think all of us who grew up in Taiwan were fascinated by Kinmen, but most of us actually know very little about it. Kinmen has always been the front line. At least it's I think in the film I talked about Kinmen and sort of the body of water between Kinmen and Xiamen being the boundary, being the border between good and evil. But it changed from this place where it's about like antagonism to a place that's about communication and it's about relating to the people in China.
How do people from the main island of Taiwan view Kinmen? And has that perception changed over the years as Kinmen today plays a less prominent role than it did perhaps a few decades before?
I have in my conversations with folks in the process of making this film, really also learn a lot about the complicated relationship between the Taiwanese main island folks versus the Kinmen folks. Because of the very different history, they actually see sort of a cultural gap between the Kinmeners and the main Taiwanese islanders. Kinmen is much closer to China, maybe the most, I would say, divisive or terrible things that I've heard of is like some young Taiwanese people say, hey, you Kinmeners should just go back to China because you don't belong with us. And for the Kinmeners, it's a very, very difficult thing to hear because they already are sort of geographically marginalized.
And in the documentary, you mentioned wanting to figure out your own relationship with China and Taiwan. So what did you learn about that from making this film?
I really was very, very curious about what the Kinmenese stories, that I wanted to hear their stories from their perspective. But the more time I spent there, I realized that their situation, being, to me, sort of being sandwiched in between Taiwan and China, in some ways mirrors both my own situation of being somebody who is, who was born in Taiwan but grew up in the US and feel very much in the middle and not wholly one thing or another, which I think a lot of Kinmenese would say that that's their experience too. But then also, to me, that's Taiwan, Taiwan being right now sandwiched between China and the US and having very complicated relationship with both sides.
That was our reporter Rhys Ayres speaking with Leo Jiang, director of the film Island in Between. Coming up after the break. Tensions are rising on the Korean peninsula as both sides prepare for a possible conflict.
Formosa is the old name of Taiwan. Coming from Portuguese, it means the beautiful one. This island is really beautiful island. It has very friendly, welcoming people.
An important part of our mission is to serve as cultural ambassadors. In that role, just as we welcome Taiwan tonight,
From Formosa, coming Sunday, December 31st, 9 p.m. on TaiwanPlus.
For more stories from Taiwan and around the world, download the TaiwanPlus app.
经历过人生的话，你发现说我们大部分都是爱美的。
我自己少遇见一朵花，我可能就不是这个样子。
开始思考什么叫做一个本土性。
大声的唱出来说我是台湾人。
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has ordered his country to accelerate war preparations. Kim made the announcement at a key government meeting where he laid out plans for the coming year. The decision to speed up weapons production was a response to what he called unprecedented confrontational moves by the US. North Korean state media also reported that Kim said he would expand strategic cooperation with anti-imperialist independent countries. Soldiers, military vehicles and emergency responders were deployed to the streets of Seoul as the city held rare military drills in the face of rising tension with North Korea. Harel Hughes reports.
Helicopters, drones and bombs on the streets of Seoul, all part of a simulated attack on the South Korean capital. The drill, with more than 1,000 soldiers, police and emergency personnel participating, is a rare event in the city, but it's one its leaders feel is necessary.
북한은 언제든 도발을 감행할 수 있습니다. 그렇기 때문에 우리 또한 그 어떤 도발도 이겨낼 수 있는 확실한 대응 능력을 갖추고 있어야 합니다.
Seoul sits just 38 kilometers away from the border with North Korea, and growing tensions on the peninsula has leaders preparing for possible conflict. In the past month, North Korea launched its first military spy satellite and tested an intercontinental ballistic missile with the range to hit anywhere in the United States. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has just told his country's military to accelerate preparations for war. South Korea and its allies see this as an escalation.
북한 정권은 자신들의 이러한 도발이 오히려 스스로에게 더 큰 고통으로 돌아올 것이라는 것을 깨닫게 될 것입니다.
South Korean leaders are also learning from the war between Israel and Hamas. Hamas militants managed to launch a surprise attack against one of the most advanced militaries in the world, and South Korean leaders worry Seoul could be next.
세계 최고 수준을 자랑하는 이스라엘의 최첨단 방어 시스템이 재래식 포탄과 원시적 수단으로 무장한 하마스의 기습 공격에 속수무책으로 뚫린 것은 우리에게도 시사하는 바가 매우 컸습니다.
Tensions on the Korean peninsula and in the region are growing, and lessons from abroad have South Korean leaders doing what they can to prepare. Alex Chen and Harel Hughes for TaiwanPlus.
At least 10 people are dead after heavy storms hit eastern Australia over the holiday weekend. Torrential rains caused flash floods across the region, damaging homes and taking out power lines. Recovery efforts have begun despite continued rainy forecasts. The country has been seeing extreme weather during the El Niño season, with wildfires raging in the west. Hundreds of university students have stormed a Rohingya refugee camp in western Indonesia. The group swarmed a building in the city of Banda Aceh, housing hundreds of Rohingya refugees, chanting, "Kick them out." Police officers reportedly tried to stop the students, but were eventually forced to move the refugees to a different shelter. More than 1,500 Rohingya have arrived in Indonesia since November. The Muslim minority group is fleeing their native Myanmar, where they face discrimination. Indonesian crew on Taiwan's distant water fishing fleet launched a Wi-Fi for fishers campaign earlier this year, but it's facing some barriers, as not all boat owners are embracing the idea. Yujing Huang has the story.
a newly remodeled long-line fishing boat, getting ready for a long trip to catch tuna. While most of the crew are seasoned fishers, this next journey will be unique both for them and the vessel's owner. This boat is fitted with Wi-Fi, and its interior has been made compliant with C1AA standards. That's a UN standard aimed at improving working conditions at sea. The boat's owner, Tommy Zhen, although uncertain about this change, is willing to give it a try.
从我经营者的角度来讲啊，我觉得它的经营效率没有以前的船好，但是我也期待说，希望是不是会对我的船员有一些改变，让更多的人喜欢这个工作，让我们的人才不要一直这样断下去。
Just as when freezers became standard on fishing boats, Zhen believes having Wi-Fi out at sea is just another transition for the industry. And as communications improve, he can better monitor how his boat is getting on, receiving reports from afar on an hourly basis.
再过几年，也许我们可以及时监视到船上的各种行动，所以我们一直在期待科技越来越进步，可以让这些管理上面能够更落实，而不是闭着眼睛在管理。
The government has offered subsidies to install Wi-Fi receivers on 60 vessels. That covers almost 3/4 of the cost. But the subsidy for operating internet access at sea is much less than boat owners were hoping for. Even the cheapest plan costs $700 a month. Of the some 1,100 boats in Taiwan's distant water fishing fleet, under 10% have Wi-Fi installed, and owners have concerns beyond the internet service fees. Two members of the Taiwan Tuna Longline Association agreed to speak about their worries anonymously.
会造成阮本身船员船顶对船员的管理这产生足大的问题啦。本来休困10点钟的时间，伊要休困的期间，伊无啊，伊总一支手机看影片，跑啊去玩游戏。
一旦你说因为小孩子怎么样，或者说太太怎么样，你说你要回来，那我们这一趟几千万的经费，我们该怎么办？
But fishers who are pushing for their right to stay connected reject these concerns.
Setelah dengar berita buruk, tiba-tiba mereka minta pulang, sedangkan kita masih ada time operasi. Saya bilang itu nggak bakalan terjadi, karena kita sudah ada perjanjian kerja. Kalaupun pulang kan biaya sendiri, duit dari mana kita?
Owners also say depressed prices for seafood pose a problem, as operating costs for fuel and labor grow, and the international quota for catches shrinks. They worry that if these rising costs are reflected in the market price of their catch, they'll become less competitive than vessels that don't abide by human rights regulations. But activists say consumers are changing too, particularly in the US, one of the primary markets for Taiwan's seafood exports.
Because of sustainability and labor rights and human rights, consumers don't want their products to come from spaces that they don't know how things were made or catched, you know. And so we do believe that it also benefits Taiwan to be a leader in how this industry should behave.
As activists push for change, they also don't want distant water fishing to become a sunset industry. And they believe the burden of finding solutions should not fall on boat owners alone, but should be shared by all parties across the supply chain. And so a positive change has taken place in Taiwan because of policies implemented on the other side of the sea. Kamashi, Kleinwan, Edmund, Bichizhang, and Yujing Huang for TaiwanPlus.
Italy is world-renowned for its food, and now it's forging ahead with a new kind of restaurant that's being hailed as a barking success. Louise Watt has the story.
This restaurant in Rome doesn't just serve regular diners. It doubles as a gourmet restaurant for dogs. Each table has seats for the owners and a basket and bowl filled with mineral water for their pets. And it's a choice menu for the canine customers too.
E vengono preparati, diciamo, dal macinato di manzo, il maiale, il pollo, il merluzzo, poi ci sono le verdure, le carote, zucchine vellutate e via discorrendo, che poi vengono composte insieme e creato il piatto.
The chef at Futo restaurant prepares the dog's dinner in a separate kitchen and says they rarely turn their noses up at his mains or desserts.
È un crumble di biscotto con ricotta e mela verde.
The dogs lap it all up.
Prego.
Grazie umano, avevo proprio fame.
The restaurant has spotted a business opportunity in the Italian capital. Dogs are increasingly considered not just a pet, but a member of the family, going wherever their owner goes.
Diciamo che se io trovassi il principe azzurro farei anche un figlio. Nel frattempo ho partorito lei 2 anni e mezzo fa e quindi tutta la mia vita, il mio amore e le mie attenzioni sono dedicate a lei.
Dining out can bring social benefits for the dogs too.
Abbiamo avuto una serata dove 2 cagnolini hanno trovato l'amore, quindi erano 2 maltesini, un maschio e una femminuccia, e si sono scambiati i padroni il numero perché si sono piaciuti veramente tanto.
The dogs appear to view the gourmet meals and experience of dining out, even if under a table, positively, giving Futo and its chef a resounding paws up. Luffy Lee and Louise Watt for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching Taiwan Plus News. You can visit the Taiwan Plus website or follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, let's take a look at this ice rink in the pine forest at Okta Park in Russia. I'm Ian Kavat. Take care and see you next time.